Hi, this is Geert-Jan, and this is 5 simple ways to extend NetBeans IDE. In this screencast, you're going to learn how to add new menu items to the menu bar of NetBeans IDE. You're going to learn how to add new toolbar buttons to the toolbar of NetBeans IDE. You're going to learn how to add new windows to NetBeans IDE, such as the output window, or the palette window, or the properties window, or the projects window. You're going to learn how to extend one of the editors in NetBeans IDE, such as the Java editor, or the HTML editor, or an XML editor, such as the Maven POM editor. And finally, you're going to learn how to extend the NetBeans options window to add new tabs, such as you see here, or new subtabs within the miscellaneous window. Let's start by adding a new menu item to the NetBeans menu bar. When you look through all of the menu items, we notice that all the menu items have a couple of things in common. First of all, each menu item has a display name. And secondly, something happens when we click on the menu item. What happens is that the underlying action listener performs some action. And finally, many of the menu items have an icon associated with the display name and the menu item and the action. To get started extending NetBeans IDE, the first thing we need to do is to create a new NetBeans module. A NetBeans module is a container for a new feature for NetBeans IDE. We give it a unique name like org my company name .my feature, and we click finish. Two things worth noticing before we do any coding is that first of all, we're going to be using Ant to build this module. We can also use Maven. There is a Maven NetBeans archetype for creating new NetBeans modules. The second thing to notice is that in the manifest file we have a number of NetBeans specific keys. So this is the infrastructure for our NetBeans module. Now we can start coding. Remember that each menu item in the NetBeans menu bar consists of an action listener, an icon optionally, and a display name. So we begin by typing hello world action listener, creating a new Java class that implements action listener. Plain normal JDK action listener class, nothing special at all. And we have a method action performed where something happens. Now we need to register this action listener in NetBeans in such a way as that it will appear in the menu where we would like it to be invoked from. The way we do that is to use NetBeans annotations. One of these annotations is action ID. We cannot get the import statement right now for this annotation class because the jar that provides that class isn't part of our module yet. We go into the add module dependency dialog and we see that we need UI utilities API. So now that jar is added to our module. Once the jar is added to the module, we can get the import statement. Once we have the import statement, we can use annotations to get the attributes that we need to complete this annotation. The category that we specify determines where in the options window in the key map section our action will appear. The user will come here if they want to customize the shortcut needed to invoke the action. We imagine that the action we are creating is for editing something, so it will be in the edit category. For ID, we need to specify the unique name of this particular class, which handily can be the fully qualified name of that class. Next, let's register the display name of the action. We use for this purpose the action registration annotation, which only has one mandatory attribute, which is usefully display name. Finally, let's specify where in which menu the new menu item will be displayed. For this we use action reference. Only the path attribute is mandatory. There is a folder called menu containing a folder for each of the menus in the NetBeans menu bar, such as file, edit, view, navigate, source, refactor, and so on. So we are done and ready to install our new action. Let's quickly add an option pane so that we have something to show when the action is invoked. Option pane, show message dialog, no, hello world. We now right click on this and we can install it directly into NetBeans. The first time you do this, you should see a warning telling you that you could break your NetBeans installation if you install a plugin that does something really bad. If that happens, you can always uninstall the plugin or start up with a new user dir. So now what we see is we have a menu item, hello world, in the file menu, exactly as specified in the annotations. When we invoke the action, we see our hello world message. And so we have learned how to add a new menu item to the NetBeans IDE menu bar. As you can see, it's extremely trivial. It's 3 annotations, and for the rest you have a plain old action listener. Another way to do the same thing is to go to New and Action, and then you will step through a more detailed dialog where you can choose exactly which particular folder you want to register your action into, and you can specify where exactly your action should be displayed. Right now I've been able to do this because I happen to know the name of these folders, but if you don't know the name of the folders, you can use the action wizard instead. Now that we know how to add a new menu item to the NetBeans IDE menu bar, let's add a new toolbar button to the NetBeans IDE toolbar. There is a folder called Toolbars, and inside of that folder, Toolbars, multiple subfolders are found, each of which, when you go to View Toolbars, you can see. So there is a File toolbar, a Clipboard toolbar, an Undo Redo toolbar, or you could create your own toolbars as well. So this action listener will now be invoked from a new toolbar button that will appear in the File toolbar. In addition, we want to display an image. So I have here an icon, icon.png, and this is the image that we want to display. For that we have a special attribute for registering our icon. So we want to point to exactly where this icon is found in our module. My company name, my feature. And finally, the name of the icon. And now again, we right click, we choose Install, Reload and Development IDE. And a moment later we will see in the File toolbar, which is this toolbar here, that there is now a new toolbar button with the icon that we registered. And you can see the tooltip is our display name, Hello World, and when we click on it, we have invoked the underlying action listener, which provides the option pane with our message Hello World. At this point, our action is invocable from a toolbar button in the toolbar. Previously, it was invocable from a menu item in the menu bar. However, what if we want to have our action be invoked both from the toolbar and from the menu bar? For that reason, there is another annotation, also very easy to use, called Action References. Action References takes a series of action reference annotations. So here we go. And we need an array of these, so we use curly braces. Here is one action reference, and now we can say we want another action reference. And now we will have our action available as a menu item and as a toolbar button if we install it again into NetBeans IDE. As you can see, we have a toolbar button, and we also now have a menu item. Next up, let's create a new window in NetBeans IDE. The process is very similar to actions. For actions, we have an action listener class registered via annotations. What we need for windows is a different class called top component. So we will create a hello world top component. We will click finish, and we will use again extends, and now instead of action listener, top component. This is not a class from the JDK, this is a class from the NetBeans APIs. There it is. We click OK, and we can start using it immediately. Get the import statement, and we're good to go. In the same way as we use annotations to register menu items and toolbar buttons, we use annotations to register windows. Top component.description. Code completion shows us that there is one mandatory attribute, preferred ID, which is the unique ID of this particular window, which we will make the name of the class, Hello World Top Component. Next we use top component dot registration as an annotation, and in here we have two mandatory attributes: mode, which is the position in the frame of the IDE where this particular window will open by default, which can be the Explorer position or the editor position or the output position, and here we will say output. So this window will appear in the output position. Also, when the IDE starts up, this window will automatically also be opened. Next, when you look inside the window menu, you see a menu item for opening a whole range of different windows. Now we want to create exactly such a menu item for opening our own window. In the same way as we created a action listener and then registered it inside of NetBeans via annotations, we can take those same annotations and attach them to our own top component that we now have. What we don't need anymore is the action registration. In this case, we delete it, and we need to make sure, of course, that we have a unique ID here for our action, and the action will be able to open this particular window because we use another annotation, top component open action registration. This has as a mandatory attribute display name, which is the display name that the menu item will have where it will be added to the NetBeans IDE menu bar. So we're going to add it to the window menu. You could also have a toolbar button that will open this window, but that's not a standard feature in NetBeans IDE. The standard approach, the standard feature, is to have a menu item which opens a window. So we will do the same thing here, and we will say that the display name is Hello World Window. So this will be displayed inside the window menu, and when that particular action is invoked, so when the user clicks on the menu item, what's going to happen is that the window with the unique ID Hello World Top Component will be opened. Final step is to think about what should be displayed in the tab of the top component. So we will create a constructor where that tab's display text is defined. So here is our constructor. In the constructor we say set display name, and then we fill in some text to be displayed in the tab. Now this is all we need to get started, nothing more than that. We have in addition Lookup API and Utilities API available in our module, as well as what we had before, UI Utilities API and Windows System API. Right click on the module to install it, and we will have our new window. As you can see, we have a new tab in the output position as we specified. We see now we have Hello World, and in here inside our Java code we can now include any swing classes, JPanel, JTextField, or any JavaFX classes that we want to add into this tab that we have now created. When we go to the window menu, we can see we have our Hello World window, which is what comes from our definition here. We've said that Hello World window should be the display name of the menu item, so that when the tab is closed, one simply goes up here to reopen that tab. And that is how you add a new window to NetBeans IDE. Next, we will extend an editor. NetBeans IDE has several editors. For example, the Java editor is where Java files are displayed. The manifest editor is where manifest files are displayed. The properties editor is where property files are displayed, and the XML editor is where XML files are displayed. When you right click inside one of these files, we see actions that are relevant to the file. So for example, check XML is relevant to XML files. When we're inside Java classes and we right click, we see actions that are relevant to Java files. So when we invoke the find usages menu item, beneath that is an action listener that is specific to Java classes. Beneath the check XML menu item is an action that is relevant to XML files. Let's now take our Hello World action listener and not only have it available inside the file menu as we have it right now and inside the toolbar, but let's also make it available when the user right clicks inside of a Java class. The way in which an action becomes available when we right click inside a Java editor is exactly in the same way as it becomes available to the menu bar and the toolbar. You need to know the folder where you should register your action listener. Now, menu and toolbars, that's reasonably simple to remember, but once we get to the Java editor and the XML editor and so on, it becomes more complicated. So when we right click inside of our module, we can go to Other, we go to Module Development, and we go to XML Layer. This little wizard, this template that we are in right now, creates a new file called Layer XML, inside of which menu items, toolbar buttons, windows, and other UI items are registered. So far we haven't had to do this at all, because we have had annotations. These annotations, when we build the module, result inside the build classes meta-inf folder a layer file being generated for us, so that we don't have to look inside of this XML file and define these XML elements and all the XML attributes and make all kinds of typing mistakes. Instead, what happens is that all of those are generated from these annotations. However, even though we don't need this layer XML file, it is very useful because it lets us browse inside of the NetBeans system. So inside important files, I can expand the XML layer file, I can expand this layer in context and see all of the folders. Now I can see also where I have made changes. So in the menu bar folder, in the file menu, a new item has been added via the annotations inside the class. What we can also do is we can see, so we see that we have added to the menu bar, we have added to the actions folder, we've added to the toolbars folder, but what we now want to do is add to an editor. So we go inside here, editors, text, and you can see here a long list of different MIME types. The one that we're interested in is xJava, text xJava, and in here there is a folder called actions, and if we right click on those actions and choose go to declaration, the layer file in the related jar opens and shows us how that particular action has been registered. Now the folder that we're interested in is not so much actions but pop-up. If you read the related Java doc, you will find that all the items that appear when you right click inside of a particular editor, such as the XML editor, comes from a folder called pop-up. So for text xJava, which is the Java editor, so let's go back to a Java file and close everything else to avoid confusion. What we see in here is a long list of menu items that are generated because of entries made inside the editor's text xJava pop-up folder. If I right click on one of these and go to declaration and see where this particular item is defined, I see editors text xJava pop-up. So this is important information. We go again inside of our Java class, and now we have the information that we need. Editors text xJava pop-up, and that is what we will type here. editors, text, xjava, pop-up. Make very sure that everything has been typed text xjava absolutely correctly. Text xjava pop-up, and then we can go back again, right click and install this module again, which should result in us seeing, when we right click inside of the Java class, our hello world menu item. So we now have a new pop-up menu item, hello world, which is available whenever we right click inside of a Java class. Finally, let's extend the options window. Each module that you provide can provide configuration settings. You could provide a special dialog that comes along with each module for configuration purposes. So we have provided a window. We might want the user to change the background color of the window to something else. We could provide a special dialog, but better is to integrate into the NetBeans IDE options window where all configuration settings are found, so that anyone using your feature that you have provided via your module can customize it in the same way as they customize any other feature in NetBeans IDE. So you can see that we have these higher level tabs, first level tabs, and we also have second level tabs. You could have hundreds of these top level tabs, but the options window would become very crowded and very difficult to work with. Therefore, consider making a second level tab within the miscellaneous tab rather than a high level tab, except if you're adding a really important feature that you think needs to be highlighted on the highest possible level. Either way, we can again create a normal Java class and annotate it in certain ways, but in the same way as we can also use templates for everything. So we've created an action already, we've created a window, we can use templates, so a guided wizard structure that takes us through all the steps and shows us all the folders, so that we don't have to know the folders ourselves, but we get presented them inside drop downs and lists and other things. We can also create a options panel extension via the options panel template. So you can see that there's information to provide, either a primary panel, a higher level panel with its own special icon, or a secondary panel with one of the existing panels. So let's say we'll call this one my feature, and it has certain keywords which will make it easier to find. So feature maybe, and cool, and great. If you have some key terms in here, the user will be able to find your options panel via this search dialog that you see up here. So once we install this module into NetBeans IDE, the user of NetBeans IDE will be able to type inside this little drop down at the top here, type one of the keywords, and then what will appear will be information including the options panels that relate to the entered text. Now what we can see is what's been added, first of all, is again a class that has been annotated in a certain way. So here is our special annotation, options panel controller sub-registration. There is also an actual JPanel, so a plain normal standard Java Swing JPanel where you can design the layout of that particular window together with placeholders for loading and storing the values inside of that options window, so that when the options window closes, the values entered are stored. When it's restarted, the values entered are restored into the options window. So this is really all we need to do. We can again install this into NetBeans IDE, and what we will see in the options window is a new tab. So here we have the options window, and there we have my feature, and in here we can have something defined either in Java Swing or in Java FX, because this is a normal JPanel you can either use Swing or JavaFX to add content to it. What you've seen in this screencast is that all you need to do is create normal Java classes, an action listener, for example, or a NetBeans top component, which is really a JPanel that fits into the NetBeans window system, or a JPanel for the options window, and add some special annotations, and then NetBeans will take care of all the rest and present the menu items and the toolbar buttons and the windows and the options windows wherever you need them to be presented. As you integrate your own technologies into NetBeans IDE, there are 3 handy tips to bear in mind. First of all, in the way that I have done, you can create a new layer XML file which gives you access via the projects window. So I'll close all the documents to avoid confusion here and go to the important files node, and you can see that we can expand it and we can see all the folders within NetBeans IDE. And we can see where we have added our own content, and we can also look at how other similar content has been registered, so that we can copy information from these registrations into our own module. The second important thing is to use the file types that you see here. So these are templates or wizards inside the module development category in the new file dialog. So once you've created a new module, go to new file, go to module development. So another way to get there is file and new file, and you see a whole range of different templates that simplify getting started with all of these different APIs. Go through all of these templates a couple of times and see what's generated, and then ultimately try and create those same artifacts, those same Java classes, in other words, without using those templates. Try and use purely annotations, which means that you can copy and paste action listeners that you might have already for your technology into a NetBeans IDE module and then annotate it. Similarly, if for your technology you have some JPanels, you can copy them into a NetBeans module, change extends JPanel to extends top component, and then annotate in the way that you have seen here, and then you've integrated a JPanel from your own technology into a NetBeans module. The information in this screencast gives you a starting point to integrating your own technology into NetBeans IDE, or to create any plugins of any kind for integration into NetBeans IDE. There is something called the NetBeans Platform Learning Trail, which is relevant to this as well. This discusses all of the APIs in quite some detail and presents a range of different scenarios for extending or creating your own editors, for adding to the menu bar, to the toolbar, for creating your own file templates, your own project templates, a whole range of features, whatever you can imagine that you can do in NetBeans IDE. There is some tutorial or document somewhere that will describe how to do so, and the starting point is netbeans.org/features/platform/all-docs, or simply type platform.netbeans.org, and you will get to the NetBeans platform homepage, from where you can go to the all documentation link, which will get you to all the tutorials that will help you get further into extending NetBeans IDE. Thank you for your attention in this screencast, and have fun extending NetBeans.